Hi, I'm Michael Anderson. I'm the founder and CEO of Radiant Technologies. We're a Microsoft Dynamics NAV Gold Certified ERP partner. The purpose of this presentation is to answer common questions we have that customers come to us when going through the upgrade process. We thought it would be a good idea to put everything in a webinar so that people, whether they're customers or we're going to put this free out to the web, people can listen to this webinar and hopefully get some of their common questions answered. Quick note, throughout this presentation, I might refer to the product as Dynamics NAV, NAV, Navision. It's also been called Navision Financials, Navision Attain. I think we all know it's all the same product. Microsoft and Navision and have changed the name several times throughout its career. So if we jump right in and we talk about our agenda for today. First thing is we're going to talk about the process or the methodology we go through. We've done over 1,000 Dynamics NAV upgrades, and through that we've worked out a very specific process. And first thing we're going to do is go through that so the customers, you can see how the normal process works. There's a concept called re-implementations that may be relevant to larger, more complex clients and or customers that are on an older version. We're going to talk about things what factors go into the timing of an upgrade, how long it takes, as well as the cost of an upgrade. The new thing over the last year or two has been the cloud and hosting and how considerations like that might factor into decision making. The RTC rotator client is a new word in the last couple of years, again, around Dynamics NAV and Navision. That has to be taken into account. We're going to take a look at how long an average upgrade takes. As a client, everybody always wants to know what their role is going to be, what they have to put into the process. So we'll address that as well as what you as the customer can do to make things easier and less expensive on the whole process. At the end of it, we're just going to talk very briefly about who we are as Radiant Technologies. And then at the last thing, if you do want a budgetary estimate, what you can do to get that budgetary estimate. Here's our upgrade methodology. Now on the left-hand side, you're going to see the process that we go through. On the right-hand side, you're going to see the output, so the deliverable of that stage of the process. We're going to go through this quickly, step by step. What's important to know is this is, again, an overall process. Certain customers are going to use more or less of this depending on the complexity, depending on the speed. So as we go through this, again, keep in mind that this is a general structure that isn't necessarily a Bible. The first area is budgeting. So on the process side, we have the budgetary analysis, and then you get a budgetary quote. And because oftentimes before customers want to spend a lot of time looking at something in detail, how long it'll take and the complexity, they want to understand how much overall is this going to cost. Is this a $10,000 thing? Is it a $100,000 thing? Is it $1 million thing? Chances are it's not going to be $1 million, but we want you to have an idea of approximately what you're dealing with here. And with just some easy, quick information from you, we can get that back very quickly. Second thing is if the budgetary quote is something that's acceptable to you, we go into a conversion analysis. Out of the analysis, we get a detailed proposal and project plan because we've really looked and we've talked to you. And the conversion analysis is us working with you and really digging deep into some of the items for the upgrade. We come out with a list of existing mods, customizations, as well as integrations, any integrations you have with other systems. So if it's an e-commerce system, if it's a separate CRM system from the NAV CRM system, we list all those out as well. And then we have a training plan for the new functionality. So one thing customers have to keep into mind is there's new functionality in each one of these versions. And with that, we always have to work out a training plan because we don't want to just move from one version to another just to say we did it, because that's a time and a cost expense. We also want to figure out how we're going to take advantage of the new version and implement them into our business processes and actually get good gains out of the upgrade as well. Real quick, everybody talks about, hey, I have all these existing mods and customizations in my database. What do I do with them? I don't even know what's in there. Some other people were here. I wasn't even here when we talked about the original customizations. I don't even know what's vanilla Navision and what's not. So what we do is we have actually a merge tool. And what this tool does is it goes And this is just a quick view of it. And Microsoft puts out this tool, and this allows us to basically segregate out what's custom and what's native, what's vanilla Navision in your database. We can actually run this tool very quickly and get a list of all the different customizations in your database. And then we can use that as a decision point with you and go through one by one and talk about, hey, this maybe we want to port it over, this we don't even use anymore, this one might be covered by new functionality. So this is a very crucial part of the whole conversion process in an upgrade. Then what we do is we go through and convert the database into what we call a test database and then get into the new version. So what we do is we take your old data and database, we run it through the conversion tool and deliver a test database onto your server in the new versions. And what that does is that allows you to get in there and test and see what the new version does. This allows for training as well. And we are there step by step, our consultants there to help install the new version. If there's any hardware needed, we get the hardware in, any new architecture, any of these integrations. And then we sit down with you and we go through the new version. And then also, again, we have user acceptance testing and oftentimes test scripts so that we make sure that everything ported over works correctly as it did in the previous version. Then what we do is we actually may do the whole conversion the second time in a test scenario. We call that a go ready. Sometimes this is done, sometimes not. It depends on the complexity of the conversion. So this would be a second time we run everything through the conversion process, especially if we found there was tweaks in the other version. A lot of times moving to a new version, there may be more customizations you want to strip out, or you want to take advantage of different features and functionality. So this is an optional step in there. Then we get user sign-off and testing. Again, we talked about user acceptance testing and checklists. We have standard checklists that we provide to you. In addition, they may be customized based on your specific situation. But it gives us a great. We have templates that we've used hundreds and hundreds of times to step us through this process and make sure we don't forget anything. So the last thing we do is we convert the database, and then we have that fun weekend, whether it's a weekend or it's a overnight, depending on the size of the database, and where we take your old data, your old database, we shut it down, we convert it to the new one, we install the new one, and then we make sure everything is ready. And then we have a go live sign off. So again, we don't, there's a lot of different things going on here. We want to make sure we don't forget anything. So we have those go live checklists that we go through during the go live. And then we have ongoing support. We're always here to support you, not just during the go live, but in the future. So that's a quick view of the methodology we have in front of us. I want to talk about reimplementation because this comes up often. Our definition of what a reimplementation is implementing a new version of the product from scratch. And what that means is if somebody's on an old version and they want to go to a new version, and we'll talk about in a second who this is relevant for. We move over limited data, usually like items, customers, vendors, the general ledger, things that we might call master data, and then we start with a vanilla database. So we normally don't move over transactions. Sometimes we move over certain historical pieces of data, and we also take out most or all of the modifications. And who is this right for? So if there's people on very old versions, so if you're like on one of the legacy versions, if you haven't upgraded for 5 or 10 years, which there are people out there that are on like a version 1.2, 2.5, etc., and going to the new version, it's so radically different that companies are saying, hey, I don't even want to upgrade. I just want to upgrade all those steps, because in a way the data has to transfer from one version to another, and the products Microsoft has added so much to the product in the last 5 or 7 years that they really want to go, and they just say, heck, we just want to skip all the way to the new version. If people have old, confusing modifications and customizations in there, so a lot of people might have had a different business model when they implemented NAV, and now they're not using the same type of things, so they want to get those things out of there because they're taking up space, they're making things confusing, they're hard to support because all those modifications are in there. If people have old and bad data, again, this comes just from using the system, and maybe you've had integrations with other products and they weren't put in right. You might have bad data in the system, which gives you problems in reporting or different areas of the system. When we talk about new users, a lot of times we'll get a call from a customer or somebody using the system, and they'll say, hey, we have Dynamics NAV, Navision, and we weren't the people to install it. It was my predecessor that installed it. Nobody here is at the company anymore. We went through a management change, whatever, and we don't even know what the product is really doing. And we want to sort of architect it ourselves based on what we know is important to the company now rather than before. So we want to start with a fresh slate. And that's basically what a re-implementation is. Companies are saying, hey, I like the product, I'm used to the product, we know the interface, we have some data in there, we have some setup in there, though it's old, it's not representing what we exactly do here. I think there's modifications that are causing us problems, ISV products that are causing us problems. Let's take our skeleton here and start new, and that just opens up so many new things for certain clients. It makes the whole process a lot easier. The benefit of it is for some customers, especially ones on very much older version, it may cost much less to do a re-implementation rather than a full implementation. If you have a lot of modifications, or again, you're on a very old version, it may really cut down on the cost. Normally, it's much quicker because you as the user already know the system, so that we don't have to go through a lot of training. You can move stuff over. Data conversion is a lot quicker, so taking out modifications is obviously quicker. So this is normally a much quicker process. Starting with clean data is always nice as well, especially if a lot of things have been changed over the years. You can start with that clean slate. And just a real quick note on that, you can also move over some historical data, so it's not like you're starting with nothing in the database. And then you can start with a little or no customizations. Again, you can start with the great database. I mean, Dynamics NAV is so much different now than it was even 7 or 8 years ago. There's so much been added to it that really gives you a good base to go off of. And it can tailor to meet your needs. So again, what we talked about is different for every client, and you do have the options here and there depending on what you need. The cloud. So Radiant Technologies, we're one of the innovators in the cloud, and we were one of the first. Actually, we had the first customer in North America on a hosted version of Dynamics NAV Navision. The definition of the cloud, a lot of people might have heard of it, is this is moving your server off-site. And so what this could be is this could be sort of renting NAV Navision, so you pay on a per user per month basis, or it could be taking your whole server and moving it to a hosted facility so you don't have to worry. There's a lot of things you don't have to worry about. For example, the benefits of doing this are you have remote access. So inherently, when you move your server to the cloud, and again, there's different cloud providers. So I'm going to throw this out here, and you're welcome to take in this information if you have questions. This is a whole nother conversation. We might even do a whole nother webinar on this because it's such a large topic. So please reach out to us directly if you have more questions. So the benefits of the cloud, once you put your server on the cloud, you have instant remote access from anywhere, of course, with the correct security, though it is available remotely inherently. Security, the cloud, I know there's been a lot about, and again, we could talk about this for a while. The cloud is a lot more secure than it is in your office. I mean, both from the technological point of view. I mean, there's a lot more firewalls. It can't get hacked into as easy as your internal server, as well as there's fire protection, there's flood protection, there's electricity protection that they get with the economies of scale. You just cannot get in your office. Availability, they get a lot of times they guarantee 99.9% 24/7 availability. Scalability as well. Now this is nice because if you add or actually take off users, the cloud handles all that for you. So if it's at a hosting facility and you have to add 30 users, you can do that overnight. If it's internal, you might have to order new hardware, get it all set up. I mean, it could literally take weeks to add a few users. We talked about, well, the disaster recovery. So on the cloud is backed up every night, and we found that on site, when people have servers on site, that the quality and quantity of backups sometimes varied, which is a bit scary. And we talked about backups. And actually, we've had accounting departments come to us and say, hey, we have all of our other servers for everything else on site, but we want to move just our ERP server to the cloud because we really need that peace of mind. Because sometimes IT has their own things to worry about, so we may not be at the top of their priority list, or whether it comes to report writing or whatever. So there's some accounting and financial departments that have come to us, and we've moved them to the cloud so that they can be more self-sufficient. The RTC is what they call the role-tailored client. This came out a few years ago in NAV. And just to show you, I'll give you a quick view here. So this is the old Classic client. So if this looks familiar, you're on the Classic client. Some people don't even know if they're on the Classic or the RTC. If you've implemented a new system probably in the last two, maybe 3 years, then you're on the RTC. Otherwise, you're probably on the Classic client. And here's a view of the RTC. It's what Microsoft did, and obviously it looks a lot different, a lot more like Windows and Office 2010. What Microsoft did a few years ago is they rewrote the client for Microsoft Dynamics NAV and in a pure .NET platform. And it's a lot more modern looking, and it has different connectors, which we'll see in a little while. If you are going to move from the Classic client to the RTC, you do want to factor in there's going to be additional staff training, because people are used to the Classic client and things are going to change in their world a little bit. Although the functionality is exactly the same in the RTC as it is in the Classic client. This is important. The way things look and feel and navigate are a little bit different. And so and you can actually run Dynamics NAV in mixed modes. So for example, I can run it on my desktop with the Classic client. You can run it on your desktop in the RTC. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. And so when you deploy, if you're on the Classic, because everything eventually is going to be RTC in the next few years on Microsoft, but you can do a gradual move over. So you can actually have both the Classic and the RTC on your system at one time. And if you're used to using the Classic, then you can just do a little bit of things in the RTC as you get used to it. Or you can move department by department over the next few years to the RTC. The RTC, once you get used to it, especially I've been working with NAV since 1995, I'm so used to the Classic client. And of course, anything I've been using for 16, 17 years feels very familiar to me. Though once I start getting used to the RTC, which takes a little while, it has some great advantages for it as far as some things in there. So, but your staff is going to have to get trained in the RTC. Hardware architecture is a little bit different in the RTC as well, so you may have to set up another server for that, whether it's a virtual server or an actual server. That has to be taken into account. And then we have form and report transformation. So the screens and reports are different in the RTC, so if you have a lot of customized reports and forms, that has to be taken into account as well. The advantage of the RTC is there's better user adoption and training, and this is often for new users. Like we just talked about, if people have been using something for a long time, they're used to it. Though it's been studied, and new users adopted the new version of the RTC, the new client, much quicker than the old version, and it helps in training as well. It's got a good technology base, so it's pure .NET, and that's going to open up different things like true double byte and some things behind the scenes that you may not be overtly aware of. It's more standard Microsoft, so both the look and feel and the connections to other products are more. This is sort of Microsoft saying, hey, NAV is a great product, your client's okay, though we got to really move you into the Microsoft world. And then it has better features and functions. There's graphings available. You can pop graphs up and your Outlook, as well as your to-do list and your customers, all on the home page. It's really, really nice. Some factors in time and cost. Now, I want to just go over the large factors that are going to determine how quickly and inexpensively or expensive and complex your upgrade may be. What's your current or destination version? Obviously, if you're moving from version 1.0 into the new version, that's a big jump. You've been using the product 17, 18 years. That's a big jump from version 1 to the current version. We don't see many of them anymore. Even if you're on a 2.5, 3.1, 3.6, 3.7, that's still a pretty big jump. If you're on a version, if you implemented or upgraded within 2-3 years ago, it's a very quick and easy process, relatively speaking, from one version to another. How many companies are in your database? The way it works is you have to upgrade company by company. So if you have 30 companies in your database, you also have to do a little bit of checking on each one to make sure everything came over the right way. And so each company that you add exponentially does add a little bit more to the upgrade process. We also talk multi-country, multi-language, and multi-currency is all goes into testing, so they all can add a little bit of complexity into the upgrade process. Database size, some people have 20, 30, 50, 100 gigabyte databases, and when we run the upgrade process, we have to crank through all that data. Sometimes what happens is there's a problem in the data, so if we get to a problem in the data, we have to start over. If it's supposed to be running for 20 hours and it conks at hour 15, then we have to find it, mess with the data, and then restart everything. So that is a factor in the upgrade process. How many modules or areas? If you're just using NAV for financials, which some companies are, it's a fairly easy upgrade. If you're using NAV for complex manufacturing, CRM, business intelligence, you're doing all these great things with the product. Obviously, that's going to be a little more complex, a little more time intensive than just using a small sliver of the product. How many users? There's some customers on NAV that are 5 or 10 or 20 users. We have other companies that have 150, 200, 500 users. There's a big difference in the number of users. Also, larger organizations oftentimes have more complex databases. They're doing different things in there as well. Some companies have a good internal IT staff, a staff that really takes a lot of ownership. They're trained in NAV. They really get their hands dirty. They can do a lot of stuff themselves. Other companies are hands-off. They say, hey, we just want to focus on our business. Radiant, we want you to take care of the NAV side. So they have us take a lot of the burden of this. We're happy to do this. Obviously, that does take into account on the cost of total upgrade. Hardware, occasionally, sometimes, when you're going through this upgrade process, you have to look, is this a time to refresh your hardware? Do you want to implement a web client or a SharePoint client? So if you are, there may be hardware considerations. Integrations to other systems. Now, if you have, if we talked about, you have a CRM, you have an e-commerce package, if you're doing something with BizTalk, XML, EDI, these are all different things that have to be taken into account. How is data being transferred? How is it going to work in a new version? Most likely it's the same, though we want to test that, obviously, and make sure that that we run it in the test environment so that when we go live, it is very smooth. And then, are you doing an upgrade or re-implementation? So all these factors, all of them are a factor. If you add all of those up, you can start seeing whether you're going to be if it's going to be a pretty quick and straightforward implementation, or if it's leaning to something more complex and time-consuming. How long will it take? Here's the quick answer. We've been a lot of complicated answers. About 2 to 3 months. So if you start the process, normally, unless it's very simple or very complex, or there's business reasons you may want to do it very quickly, or take a long time to do different process improvements or whatever, 2 to 3 months is a good quick answer to that. What's your role as a client? So in the planning stages, we really like to understand what are your goals. So if you can, and we'll work with you on these to figure out what's the goal of the implementation, or upgrade. Is it just to get you on a newer supported version, a Microsoft version, or are you upgrading like your desktop platforms and your Outlook, so you want to make sure everything works together, or is there something in the new version you really want to take advantage of? What's your schedule? Any important scheduling things we have to know about? Oftentimes customers will say, hey, these reports we use, these reports we don't use. Reports we're going to talk about a couple times during the next couple minutes, because we'll often get into customers' system and they'll have hundreds of custom reports. Now we have to know which one of those reports you guys are using, so there is a process we can go through that. But each report should be tested with the new version, just because we'd rather know what's working and not working beforehand rather than after the fact. Or at least we want to know what reports are important, because those are the ones we're going to want to test. Some people, they have so many custom reports that they don't know who's using or not using or when they use them, that a lot of times they just say, here's are the ones we really need. These are the ones we make sure we migrate and test. The other ones we're going to put on this list, and then as people need them and ask for them, we'll move them over. There's a utility we can put in the database. And what that utility does is that will tell how many, we run it, put it in for like a month, and that'll tell who runs what report, how many times it's been run. So that's a good little audit report we can do to get a heads up on that. And again, modifications, a lot of times we'll get into customers will say, hey, we don't need this modification anymore, it's causing trouble, we don't want it in there, it's causing complexity, or they'll say, hey, this mod we need, we want it to stay. When we convert database, you'll be involved in the testing and training, and the go-live preparation. You, again, will be involved in the testing, and then obviously in the go-live process. What you can do, here's what a lot of customers want to know. Hey, what can we do to prepare for the process? What can we do to make things easier on ourselves, maybe less expensive? So on preparation, there's going to be homework. Go out, look at the new versions. Oftentimes, we'll have presentations of what's in the new version, or we can either do some to our clients, or we can do some one-on-one to you. So if you say, hey, Michael, we are on this version. We're looking to move to this version. We want to know what's important to us in the new version for our company. We can have that conversation with you and do a presentation around that, whether to you, your management, your staff, etc. What do you want to put some thought into it? What do you want to do differently in the same? What's working for you and what's not working for you? Reports, reports, reports. We talked about that. What's important, what's not important. During the conversion, we need you to be present and active and to get your homework done on time. A lot of you have been through implementations with us, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do and you need to do because you know it about your company. And if you can do it on time, and when we have meetings, make sure you're present, you're there. That really is a big help to us during the whole implementation. And then train the trainer. So oftentimes, if there's a department, whether it's accounting department, customer service, purchasing, etc., we will train the main person there, and then the main person there will train their staff. And of course, we're there to help answer any questions during that time. Though we find out when we do train the trainer, that cuts down on costs and provides more ownership and understanding internally in your organization. Just a quick note about who Radiant Technologies is. We've been working with Microsoft Dynamics NAV since 1995. It was a beta when it just came out as a beta in the Windows version. We're the top level of Microsoft partners out there. We're international with our headquarters in the United States, in sunny San Diego, actually. We exclusively work with Dynamics NAV as far as the Dynamics products. That's our main product and our flagship product. We've been involved with over 1,000 upgrades, and so we know this stuff by heart. We know it backwards and forwards, and so I don't want to say we've seen it all, because every time I say that, we see something we haven't seen before. But we basically have a solution to anything you have. I mean, some solutions, they come on all different packages, and when I say we act as a trusted business advisor, one thing we really pride ourselves on, and this is one of our differentiators, is customers will say, hey, I have this problem. And we'll say, hey, look, we've seen this problem before. We've seen similar problems, and here's the different things you can do to solve it, and here's the implications of each one. So we really like to understand your business. We really like to understand your problems, and that's our value add, is we work with you to solve the problems. We're focused on long-term partnerships. There's a cute little picture here. So this is one of our user groups. And these are all the customers we honored that were on the product for 10 years or more. Now, I'm the tall guy in the back there. That's me. And we have I think it's over 42 customers that have been using the product for 8 years or more. That's a statistic Microsoft has given us. And we're just happy that we can provide that much value and the product can provide that much value, that companies can invest this amount of money and this time in a product, and it keeps going for a decade or more, which is incredible when the average age of a system is under 3 years. So again, if you want more information on the time and the cost of an upgrade, and again, we can take into account all these different factors we talked about. We have a website called dynamicsnavupgrade.com. That's dynamics-nav-upgrade.com. And it's right here on your presentation. Go to there, fill out the form. We will send you the sheet. It's very quick to fill out, probably 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes at max. Get us the sheet back, and we can get you that budgetary proposal of what's going to be involved in your upgrade, how much would it cost, how long would it take, what are the complexities, here's any red flags, and that can really lead to an intelligent conversation between us to see what would be involved in an upgrade for you. If you have any other questions, you can feel free to give me to contact me directly. My email is michael@radiant.us.com. The phone number is area code 866-99-RADIANT. Again, 866-99-RADIANT, R-A-D-I-A-N-T. And again, there's our website, dynamics-nav-upgrade.com. So I really hope this has been helpful for you. It's been actually fun for me to do. We hope we've given you some more information. Feel free to reach out for us and keep an eye out for our other webinars. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.